Hi everybody, Steve Griffiths here, developer of the MTPredictor software program. In today's video I'd like to go over what happened on Friday, which was August the 2nd. To start with, as more experienced MTPredictor users, we look at the higher time frame to set our larger degree trend. In other words, we don't tend to use the STF color as you become more experienced. So I'd like to show a good example of this on Friday. So for this we go to the larger time frame. So if you're trading 3 and 5 minute charts, we then look to the 15-minute time frame. We were actually looking at this in our live webinar on Friday as well, so this was quite a good example to follow up on. Remember what we do. We look at our prior pivots. Before the day started, August the 2nd, there was a pivot high here, so I can place the analysis on, or the DP on this pivot here, and as you can see that this projected a level up for potential resistance. There was also another pivot here. So let's place the DP from this pivot here, and as you can see it came out and actually caught the low of the day on Friday. But the point being is that these DPs would have been on your chart before the market even opened. So here we can see the ES came down, it opened lower and came down and found support at this 15-minute DP and then rallied quite nicely up into the opposing DP later in the day. This TS1 setup would not be valid because it was against a blue STF. So what could the advanced traders among you have done? Well, the main thing is we knew that here we were finding nice support on a higher time frame just after the open, in other words at around about 9:30, 10 o'clock down there. So if we'd go down to the 3-minute chart, ideally we'd be looking for buy setups or long trades, and actually on the ES we didn't get any automatic setups. But the ES is the boss. In other words, we use this to define, or we call it the boss because particularly the YM tends to follow the ES. This is why we tend to suggest, rather than just purely and simply looking at one market and one time frame, we tend to suggest people follow the ES, the YM and the NQ. NQ sometimes has a mind of its own, but the YM very often follows the ES. So there's no setups on the ES. Let's have a look at the YM. Well, lo and behold, we had a TS1 buy setup here. This was a standard MTPredictor trade setup because it was on a black STF. So even for standard traders, this would have been a nice trade into the first target for a nice 3.6 hour profit. However, for the advanced traders among you, what difference would we have done in the trade management? Well, because on the 15-minute ES, we knew that this was larger degree support. Therefore, the larger degree trade was defined as up. We'd then try to look for to run our trades a bit further. And particularly as this was larger degree support, when we come to the YM, this would be defined as what we call an important low. Off this important low, we had an initial rally. Off this initial rally, we had an initial correction that subdivided into an ABC. In Elliott wave terms, this would be defined as a wave 2. What happens after a wave 2? Well, then we typically get a wave 3 type rally. So in other words, for the advanced traders among you, rather than looking to play this just to the first target here, you'd be looking to go out to the higher or larger degree, not a larger degree, or the higher target here of the typical wave 3 WPT. And as you can see, that's exactly what the YM did, with the market rallying up here later in the day to catch that wave 3 WPT really quite nicely indeed. Also on the YM chart, to give a little bit of added weight to this, is for those of you who've been with MTPredictor for a while will know that I like to place DPs on the charts from the last swing into highs or lows. In other words, this was a low and a pivot here. You can see that this swing I'm highlighting with the mouse was the last swing down into the low. So in other words, I like to come up to this last pivot, place the DP on from here, and I also think that this is an area where the market is likely to go to. I've just slid that along a bit, and lo and behold, it combined in with the area, or fell in the same area, I should say, as the typical wave 3 WPT. So to me, this gave added confidence that the market was likely to go up to this particular area here. I always like it when we get 2 or 3 different different tools telling us the same thing. So in other words, let's review this. The TS1 buy setup here was not just a standard trade setup, is what we call the Holy Grail trade setup. It was a Holy Grail trade setup because it was the initial correction of the initial move off an important high or low. This important low here would have been ideally found on the YM 15-minute chart, but as you can see, we were actually well beyond the DP support on the YM, so it wasn't absolutely perfect on that. However, the more experienced users among us would have known that the ES was the boss, and because we had the 15-minute support on the ES, this gave us the definition of the large degree or important low here. So with this set as an important low, this would be considered a wave 1, this would be considered a wave 2, therefore we'd be looking to trade into the typical wave 3, in other words anticipating a wave 3 type swing. For me, these are the trade setups that I like the most and why MTPredictor was designed in the first place. Why are they so good? It's not because they have a high percentage of winning trades, but because the profits are much larger than the initial risks or the losses. Here this profit would have been approximately 8 times the initial risk. Why is this? Well, because wave 3s are normally the strongest and longest moves in any completed 5-wave sequence. So therefore, to be able to catch entering a trade right as the wave 2 is ending, to then be able to catch the wave 3, to me is the best trade in the book. And like I say, this particular trade setup was why MTPredictor was designed in the first place. So there you go, a good example of an MTPredictor Holy Grail trade setup on the 3-minute YM on Friday, with the most important point was defining this important low, and this was defined as the support on the 15-minute chart because of the ES, because the ES is the boss. We also added in the DP off the last swing into this low to give us some added confirmation as well. So hopefully that was a good trade setup there that you all caught, and a good example of not only MTPredictor in action, but my favourite trade setup, which is the Holy Grail trade setup as well.